I'm going to paint the beach ball, but this time we are going to just block out the colors, and as usual we need our 2 containers of water, one for clean colors, clean water for clean colors, and 1 container for washing, and of course our watercolor kit and the paper towels. So as you can see, the image has a lot of colors, but we are also going to just block out the main colors and leave the white alone for now. Right, I think I'm going to use this. Always start by checking if your brush is clean and wiping on the paper towel. Then we go around 1 circle, 2 circle, 3, and we just need to fill in the colors. Don't worry about the bright and light areas. We are just going to plainly add in the colors. Right, this is just a base color. Roughly there will be okay. Wash, because I'm going to change color. You know, this yellow is a bit darker than the one that we have, so if you want, you have to check with the color swatch that we have done earlier on to see if this color is right. If you're not fussy about it, then we're just going to block in the yellow. And of course, the last one will be the beautiful pink. And you know from the swatch that the pink is actually quite light, so we're going to get more circle to get more pigments from the color cake, and we're just going to block in the colors. Alright, and that's it. We're going to wait for it to dry. We're going to wait for this to dry, and when we come back, we're going to just work in the dark and light areas. Alright, now we're going to paint in the dark and light areas, and we're going to use a bigger brush from this set that you have. For me, I'm just going to stick with the middle one because I work best with this. You can choose your own. Now, this is going to mess up your mind because it's going to use a color that we are not so used to, black. Right, so I'm going to turn this closer to me as I'll be working on this a lot. And if you notice, your watercolor cake does come with a kind of palette for you to mix colors. Because you're going to use quite a lot of blacks, that's why we're going to test out the colors over here before you apply onto your drawing. So likewise, I'm going to take my bigger brush. Since it's going to be black, I'm not going to be very fussy about the water. So I'm just going to pick up a lot of black pigment and put it here. Okay. Notice I always go in circle at the side before I reach the middle, because oops, this is where stains happens if you are in a hurry, which I will show you how to get rid of that in just a while. So roughly about this amount I think should be enough based on the colors that I see on the image. So this is definitely from experience going to be too dark, so I'm just going to use dirty water as my first wash. You notice my washing container is full of black, and then I'm just going to test it out on a piece of paper. If you're in a hurry like me, you're just going to test it on a folded paper towel and see if this is good enough. It's a bit too light, so I'm just going to take the pigment from here, mix it up with a little bit black, and then I test it. This is the one roughly there. Okay, so you notice that it's actually near the bottom area that is actually darker, so I'm just going to work on the dark area first. Notice it's actually quite dark. Not to worry, because you're just going to block out the dark and light areas and quickly use the dilute one and continue with your coloring. Right? If you think that this is too dark, don't worry. Once it's dry, you notice that it is actually okay. Right? Then we can maybe make in some shadow as you go in. And then this part here is going to be very light. I'm just going to use the dirty water and do the rest. Okay? And then what we're going to do is the waiting time. I'm going to let this dry for a while before we come back and add in the rest of the colors. Before I go, I'm just going to round it out so that it will not disappear into the background. Okay. Alright, once the color has dried, you'll notice that the black actually wasn't that black. I hope you didn't get yours to end up looking like a black ball. Right, so what we're going to do now, just now I used a bigger brush to color and block in all the dark areas. Now I'm going to use my usual brush, the medium size one that I'm most comfortable with, to continue to paint the rest. Alright, so this was a clean container and I washed this just now. That's why I'm quite confident that this brush is actually clean. So right now we are going to go back and look at the image. As you can see from your left hand corner, the color is actually darker than this. So what we're going to do is we just now going to add some water to my color kit to freshen up the colors, do a few swirl and get a darker color. And I'm just going to quickly paint over the and I'm very sure I'm not going to use a lot of strength on the brush because I want to leave in some of these black areas that is already visible on the drawing, so that the dark and light will be quite what we call pronounced. Alright, so I'm going to wash my brush, which I'm going to regret this because the water is actually quite dirty. So I'm going to move this away. Remember from my last video, we actually have one more container, this clean container, third one. So now I'm going to shift my washing container to this, and this will be my clean water container. Alright, so let's continue from here. Just going to wash this brush and check that it's really clean on the paper towel. Oops, you can see that there's some yellow stains, so I'm going to wash it again. And then, yep, now it's much better. So I'm going to continue my other two colors. I'm going to use pink so that I will go on a clockwise manner. You can plan your work the way that you like. So I'm just going to continue. Notice that here we have bright highlight and here is darker areas. So I'm just going to block in the color 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5 because you notice that the pink is actually quite light. So I'm just going to darken this part. Avoid the bright areas, just leave it alone. You notice I just coat it lightly and leave this spot alone. And then I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and continue the rest in light touches. Do not use a lot of false because the last thing you want to have is to pick up black from the layer that's below. Okay, and then we are done. So I'm going to wash my brush, and lastly I'm going to continue with the blue. Okay, clean water, 1 round, 2 round, 3 rounds, and you notice that it's actually dark on here and a bit dark on the bottom and in the middle. We just leave it alone, and over here it's going to be dark. Here is the highlight, so I'm just going to take out the colors. As I brush, you notice the colors getting less. I'm not going to worry, so I'm just going to wet my brush, go 2 more rounds and continue with the rest. And you notice this part is the highlight, so I'm just going to leave this part alone and I'm going to paint in the rest with what I have on the brush. Okay, and this part here I'm just going to add some shadow. If you look carefully, there is a part that is quite dark over here and a bit of dark area here, and the rest will be okay. So you notice just now I accidentally brushed too much on the black area, and what happened is I accidentally pick up the pink. So if this happens, what you can do is to wait for it to dry, right? Block in the pink again. Okay, and leave it to dry. Wash your brush before you forget. Wipe it out the colors and wash again, and then let it to dry. And alright, now that the colors have dried, you notice that there is still a little bit more work to be done, especially this part where there's a darker shadow here. And you notice that the shadow, because it's resting on a white table, it has some blue tint on it, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take my dirty water, right, and I'm going to touch on the paper and see if it's really dirty, kind of, right? I'm just going to touch a bit of my blue lightly, right? I'm just going to block in a little bit blue. You notice it's quite blurry. I'm going to take out the colors and I'm just going to lightly coat this part with a little bit of blue and wait for it to dry. While waiting for it to dry, I rinse my brush, and then I'm going to use my smaller brush, take the black colors that I had on earlier. I'm going to test it out on another paper towel. Okay, it's quite dark. I think it will work. And then I'm going to work on the rest of the shadow. You can actually start by the edges to make sure you get a very sharp line. And as you work on it, you notice the colors are getting lesser because you've used up some of it on the brush. So I'm going to coat the rest with the thinning of the brush. Okay, and then I'll go back to the edge there and let the line blur out just a little bit. And now comes the hardest part of the work again, is to wait for it to dry. Remember, wash again and make sure it's clean. Okay, so I'm going to put this away and let's show you what we can do while waiting for this to dry, because we may not need this black at all, and I'm going to show you how to clean up that mess that I had earlier on. Now, if you have cotton bud and clean water, you can just get a little bit of cotton bud, wet it, just lightly roll around the black areas and pick up the dirty color, right? Rinse it away, okay, and pick up some more. Depends on how fussy you are. You can actually use the other side and pick up the rest. And of course, cotton bud, you can actually wet it and you can clean up the rest. Okay, now the small nicks and crony, you can actually use another method we call the brush, but this will actually destroy the brush, and it depends on you. If you have a brush that you don't mind destroying or is already quite wear off, then you can just use it to clean. But for now, I'm not going to do that. Put this away, and remember this mess here is very easy. I had my paper towel. I always soak up the colors before I wipe the rest. So this paper towel now is very damp and dirty. So I'm going to leave this away. And you know that I have another paper towel. If you're using the toilet paper, it's actually much easier because you can always get a new fresh sheet. But for this demo, I didn't have the toilet roll with me, so I'm going to use another paper towel. Right? Wet it a bit, and I'll wipe out the rest. And of course, you ask me, why don't I use the wet wipes? Because I just want to get rid of the black color first. That means I'm going to get out all the pigment first before I use wet wipes, because wet wipes is going to transfer all the colors all over the place. Yes, I do have my wet wipes. And then I'm going to take one sheet and I'm going to wipe up this and leave it to dry. while I clean up the rest of the table. Are we done for the day yet? No, because there is still a little bit to go, the final touches, while we wait for the colors to dry. So I'm not going to throw out these two waters as yet, because the dirty water can do wonders, which I will show you later when this thing is dry. All right, see you in a while. Notice that from the image, there is actually a very harsh line at the bottom, and then the background is kind of gray. Now this is where your artist's decision comes in, whether you want to paint the background or not. So for today's practice, I'm just going to highlight this table line here to show you to show others that actually this is sitting on the table. So like I said, I have my dirty water, right? I'm not going to throw that away. I'm just going to use the brush that I had earlier on, wet it, and I'm just going to dirty the wall. Notice straight up. Take dirty water, straight and up, right? Just lightly. Where if you find that there's too much water, you can always use your paper towel to dry the brush, and you brush the rest upwards, and hopefully you will be able to see that this ball is actually resting on the table with some background. Okay, it's just an artist's decision. You can skip this part if you are happy with what you have done. So right now, I have my usual brush. I'm going to take another one that's smaller, because now I'm going to use clean water. You see, I just dip it lightly. Some people like to have this habit of brushing at the side. I seldom do that because this is supposed to be clean water. If you do that, you actually will dirty the edges. So I'm just going to dip a little bit of water. After a while, you'll get to know your brushes well enough to know that it actually doesn't pick up too much water, right? I'm just going to go one round. I didn't go all the way because black is quite dark, so I'm just going one circle. So I'm just going to outline the bottom line just a little bit, as fine as you can. All right, then wash the brush and use clean water, right? Quite damp, right? Okay, but it's actually not a lot of water. And just going to take out some colors by drying up some more moisture from the brush, and I'm just going to take out from the edge here. It's just to blur out so that the line will not be too harsh. Okay, as you blur out, you see you have pools of black. Clean it up by drying the brush and pick up this color here. Right, and just leave everything to dry, and once it's done, I think you will be surprised that the colors actually turn out much better than you expect. Now this set of watercolor is not the most expensive one, that's why you see that the pigments is actually not very pronounced and the colors are not even. It's quite patchy, right? Because well, it's a beginner set, I guess.